to northern Sutherland. Times change, and years go by, and now the sea eagles are worth £5 million a year to the Isle of Mull alone. It's hard to believe now that when I started birding, books on birds and mammals were relatively scarce, and new titles were eagerly awaited. What we did have was a marvellous series of Victorian-era books on birds and mammals, especially the county or regional faunas written at the start of the 20th century by J.A. Harvey Browne and his contemporaries. On dark nights or rainy days, I remember the thrill of reading the likes of The Vertebrate Fauna of the Northwest Highlands and Skye, to find vivid details of sea eagles, nowadays called white-tailed eagles, swirling above their breeding sites. I would read about places which in the 1960s lacked that iconic tag of wildness, or tales of wolves and bears in James Ritchie's book The Influence of Man on Animal Life in Scotland, published in 1920. Who could forget the image of the people of Idrakillis in Sutherland taking their dead to the island of Handa for burial to save the bodies from being dug up by wolves, known locally as the Prowlers of the Night? My most lasting memories from those old books tend to be of the incredible onslaught by man on the larger birds and mammals of the Scottish Highlands and Islands. Savage descriptions of killing the last wolf in Scotland, Mr. McQueen, who lived near to Martin, dispatching it with his dirk or hunting knife in a side stream of the River Findhorn, which I can now see in the distance when I drive south from my home, or the incredible numbers of birds of prey and predatory mammals shot, trapped, and poisoned by the gamekeepers creating the sporting estates for the hunting of red deer and red grouse and the fishing of salmon. On the notorious Glengarry estates near Fort Augustus, many thousands were killed. But this drive to remove competitors to the human interests of sheep farming or game sports was widespread. Some species, like the beaver, had gone much earlier, not because they were pests, but because they were too valuable for their own good, their fur, medicinal oil, or meat much sought after. My generation was fortunate to be born into better times, with nature conservation starting to take a lead, and the obvious question to some of us was how we could get these species back. Most of these iconic creatures had died out, not through changing climate or loss of available food or habitat. Nearly all were cases of simple but appalling extermination by man. And so we talked about this when we met, gossiping over a beer at a winter conference, or while eating our piece on a mountain ridge. There was an exciting opportunity to redress the damage of previous generations, if we could only grasp it. What a thrilling prospect that was! But then, when young, I never foresaw how difficult it would be, and how many social and political hurdles would be thrown in our way, even by our colleagues and friends. With this audiobook I've tried to show how some of these projects came about, the excitements, the obstacles, the failures, and the successes. I've often concentrated on the early stages of projects, especially those that went on to be very successful, for those were the times when we just had to get our heads down, determined to get the job done with the help of really good friends. These projects are always teamwork. I hope my contemporaries enjoy listening to the accounts of different species, and I also hope that anyone interested in nature finds the stories fascinating and, in general, encouraging in difficult times. As always, I urge young people in school, in work, at university, or freshly graduated to take note that wildlife recovery projects are very long-term and need determination and perseverance. Often the social and political difficulties of starting the translocation of a species far outweigh the ecological and technical aspects. So, most importantly, anyone wishing to carry